This is Sybert signing in to Kane's Wrath on the map. Tournament Dustbowl with BikeRushOwnz as the red nod on the top side, and JonyCalcinha or JonyCalcinha as the R-17 green on the south side. And we must have Refinery first out of JonyCalcinha, which he is playing random. BikeRush, I do not believe, is playing random. So as Scrin, you can always just say to yourself, well, I have slow engineers, and my opponent may very well be getting a ton of infantry, which would make buzzer squads just not quite as good. And are we going to be seeing, yeah, it is going to be some degree of a shadow team rush, although I guess BikeRush really only wanted the one shadow team, so he was like, no, I am not going to call in the support power. But we do have Refinery first, followed up, of course, by the power plant, and then the buzzer hive to get the sell-off, and the relatively safe capture of that Tiberium spike. It'll be basically unopposed, but BikeRush doesn't actually know that. And BikeRush going to be following it up with his own Refinery, of course, and then the Warp Sphere. So pretty darn standard, although with only one shadow team, BikeRush won't actually be able to do a lot of damage. He'll be able to take a power plant down to about half health, which will put Jony on a little bit of an edge. No, never mind. I guess he's just going to be running right past that power plant and saying, no, I am a pacifist today. I do not want to build any of those or blow up any of those buildings, because terrorism is not the answer, children. That is not how you get your way, by blowing up power plants. And BikeRush going to be going for another harvester, which he really only has half the economy that JonyCalcinha does, which JonyCalcinha, if you can get ahead of BikeRush in economy, you are in a pretty solid position. If you're behind BikeRush in economy, you're basically going to lose, unless you've got some really great micro. We do have the pack up of the MCB. He is going to be moving it on to that expansion. Wouldn't be surprised to see the MCB of JonyCalcinha get pushed as well, but as you can see, the splash damage actually going to be dealing more damage to the harvester's shields than the actual militant squad. We do have two Seekers, which has been spotted. The Shardwalker is out as well. JonyCalcinha really needs to put his cards on the table and say, you know what I'm doing? I am going to be going for a strong Reaper ground army, because what else would you do as Reaper but go for that wonderful, strong ground army? And it is going to be a fairly standard expansion timing for BikeRush. It does get scouted, but both of these players will be scouting their opponents and knowing exactly when those expansion timings are, which of course, as JonyCalcinha, he needs to do what he can to stay ahead of BikeRush. He's currently ahead in economy, although BikeRush has effectively evened that up. And if JonyCalcinha can get any snipes here, he will be throwing down the Tiberium Hive, which is always just going to really weird thing to do. It will absorb some shots. I feel like that's more of what its purpose was to absorb the shots, maybe get some infantry kills. But currently, JonyCalcinha does have the tech advantage. He's at that tier 2 tech, which he might be getting attenuated force fields for these future engagements, which actually maybe, yeah, that's exactly what he is going for, which will suddenly make this army a little bit more powerful. And as you can see, these units, which were at almost half health, suddenly have those shields, which will allow them to absorb a couple of more shots, especially with that lightning spike dealing constant damage. It actually hasn't absorbed any shots for this army, which is great for Jony, because it'll just keep on dealing that damage. And suddenly BikeRush being put up against a lot of pressure from Jony. Jony's just going to continue to pressure the front, takes down another Scorpion tank. I do believe he sniped a couple of harvesters as well, only lost a couple of Seeker tanks, and has thrown down his own little repair drone support power. Might actually be sniping another harvester. A volley or two of those discs could take it down. Yes, BikeRush going to be forced to sell one of those refineries. He's trying to power his economy on the second field. Another Scorpion tank will go down, but this army is almost to the point of being overwhelmed. BikeRush going to be microing relatively well, and the repair drones have expired for JonyCalcinha, while BikeRush does have constant repairs being lent to him from that War Factory. The expansion has gone down, and we do have dual harvesters on the field for Jony. I cannot decide whether to call him Johnny or Joni. I'm not entirely sure what the correct pronunciation is. More Seeker Tanks going to be streaming in from Joni, and I do not know if this is a smart move. He needs to be focusing on his economy and keeping that on track, and then pull back. He's done enough damage to make it worth it. He needs to make sure that he doesn't overcommit, although this could be the perfect time to strike the expansion, as BikeRush's few tanks are over here, and BikeRush is going to have to make the choice. Do I want to engage with my weakened Scorpion tanks over at my expansion, or do I simply want to keep them back for a couple of more seconds and get repairs? Gets the sniped on that veteran Scorpion tank, but BikeRush will be able to get the flank with the units he produces on the side there. We do have great expansion saturation over here, and look at that. What? Why did you actually do that, Johnny? He is going to be sending back a harvester right there. On the north side, we do have more Seeker tanks and even a Gunwalker or two still surviving, although I think he's just been streaming Seeker tanks pretty much from the beginning, and he's actually stayed here long enough for his support powers to actually cool down, and now we do have too many Scorpion tanks. I think this will actually be enough to break this contain and break this attack from BikeRushOwnz, although the constant repair drones are adding some nice longevity to these units, and there goes another Seeker tank. I think at this point, the micro of BikeRush is going to be too good, although he micros incorrectly there, and will be sacrificing one of his Scorpion tanks because of it, but more Scorpion tanks are going to be getting constantly produced, and at this point, I think the attack needs to be broken off. Let the Lightning Spike deal the last bit of damage that it can. And we still do not have the blue shards upgrade just yet, although we almost probably have the tier 3 from JonyCalcinha, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that blue shard launcher upgrade happen at some point. We do have dual gravity stabilizer, which has not been spotted. We have absolutely 0 bikes currently on the field. It's been harvesters and Scorpion tanks, so this is a great transition. Will it remain unscouted? We have the Shadow team, which has been running around. It has taken a couple of shots, but it is no big deal. There is going to be the tier 3. We currently do not have enough power plants. He needs to go ahead and get the upgraded power plant for both of them. The upgrade for both of his power plants, because he actually is powering all of this off of those 3 power plants. Going to be going for those still. Oh, but the Storm Riders have been spotted, as well as the tier 3 has been spotted. And right now, BikeRush is like, well, I am not in a good position, but he will scout. He will see the Storm Riders heading out, and he's immediately going to be switching over to that bike production, bike and buggy, which you can use in large enough numbers to counter mass Storm Riders. A total of 8 Storm Riders are now on the field as 2 more spawn in right there. But will the 6 have enough armor to tank the damage while they go for the harvesters? No, why are they targeting Scorpion tanks? Needs to be going for the harvesters, as the rest of the army from JonyCalcinha does roll in here. They could have actually sniped down that power plant and been a little bit annoying, although the splitting of fire is actually making me go, what is going on? Throwing down another one of those Tiberium hives, which is just going to absorb shots. As you can see, shots from the bikes there. I don't know if those the Storm Riders were actually in range. Fairly better focus firing happening from JonyCalcinha, but in the end, it's not as good as it could be. JonyCalcinha continuing to put the pressure on. He is actually going to be grabbing his own Tiberium Spike and expanding to that third base. BikeRush going to be put under the gun just constantly by Johnny. And Johnny actually going to be calling a full retreat. He sounds all of his horns, and he's like, hey guys, come on back. We got Reaper tripods to take your place, as well as Mechapedes, which has this been scouted. BikeRushOwnz has actually been doing a great job of scouting basically everything with his Shadow team. He knows about the third base. He knows likely about the Mechapedes as well, but does he know about the Reaper tripods? The Storm Rider is going to be getting some shots off there, take down a bike or two. Not a huge deal, but it is a nice couple of shots here, as we currently do not have any sort of EMP coils on the way. They are still at least a minute away, at least 2 minutes away, as the MCV was sold off by BikeRushOwnz, so he hasn't been able to get any sort of tech. He's just been surviving on this 2-base dual war factory play. And JonyCalcinha is going to be sitting pretty well. He's going to be pretty happy with himself, even going to be getting himself a stasis chamber, deciding not to upgrade his power plants. Instead of, he's just deciding to build more power plants. Still no upgrades just yet. No blue shards just yet, which I guess shard launchers and then blue shards would be quite beneficial if he decides to go for any more Seeker tanks, which he currently is not. So I think blue shards would be a good way to go. Although the Mecha is going to be currently on the field, going to be tanking the damage and dealing the damage, being the main army composition for JonyCalcinha, but at this point, BikeRushOwnz hasn't harvested anywhere near the same amount of Tiberium as JonyCalcinha. JonyCalcinha hasn't been engaging super effectively. It hasn't been too ineffective, but at this point, BikeRushOwnz still is in this game, and he still can do massive damage if he's allowed to, and he will be able to snipe down a couple of these Storm Riders. He will get free shots off on here. I'm not sure what JonyCalcinha is actually doing. He's trying to tank the damage with the Reaper Tripod, although he does get a fairly good stasis field there. Doesn't actually lock down too much stuff, but the remaining Storm Riders will get cleaned up here. They will be able to get a couple of more kills, although maybe not. No, they all do get eliminated there, and BikeRushOwnz will be able to clean up that army. JonyCalcinha needs to transition better. His Harvesters are running around not actually doing anything as they should be. They should be up here harvesting away at this field, although he's already got his refineries. If he transfers too many more Harvesters, he'll actually be oversaturated on those refineries, and he will have some serious efficiency problems. Not going to be as bad as having no Harvesters running on those southern fields. Good sniping of that Mechapede by BikeRushOwnz. And BikeRushOwnz making the appropriate moves. Just now going to be getting that tier 2 up, although getting an extra Harvester would be a better choice, as his main field does still stand. Transferring over 1 or 2 Harvesters to the main field would be a better idea. He needs to make sure that he's splitting his Harvesters, sells off one of the refineries, and splits the remaining Harvesters, roughly half of them down to this field, and then a couple of more over here. Although, honestly, he should be sending more Harvesters to the southern field. JonyCalcinha going to be getting up that Warp Chasm. He does have better Harvester saturation over here. He needs to drop down a 3rd refinery to really hit optimum levels of efficiency. The Bike's going to be heading in, and they will get pretty good focus firing on that Mechapede, eliminating it in just a couple of volleys. The Storm Column is down, which will drive this attack back. No doubts about that. They will definitely bring that attack to a halt, but Jony losing that Reaper Tripod to BikeRushOwnz, and BikeRushOwnz able to capitalize on that. Needs to make sure that he keeps his tripods at maximum capacity at all times. Conversion reserves, so I guess that is actually a purchasable upgrade for Reaper 17. And we do have just tons of bikes on the field, but will this really be that good of a unit versus, is it going to be Shock Trooper and then Disintegrators, or will it just simply be Shock Troopers? Shock Troopers are a good sort of mix. They're able to deal damage both to ground and air, plus they have greater range than Disintegrators, but Disintegrators will give you the highest DPS. And actually, it might be better to have a couple of Harvesters down here and then Ichor seed the southern field instead of doing it to the northern field, which is already pretty saturated, and that was not that good of a call-in, but it will be enough to pay for itself, but not much more than that. We do have reformation of armies, as, oh, never want to see this pretty much ever. Is just a single epic unit going to be moving out effectively by itself. We do have dual Corruptors, and here comes the Reaper Tripod support. That is what you want to see. You do not want to see an epic unit by itself. And keeping the Storm Column around is, I think, a good move. It can be very tempting to sell off these base defenses, but considering this is really the only mining field for JonyCalcinha, he needs to keep that online as long as he can. Leading with the Reaper Tripods closer to the Eradicator would be a better move, and it looks like it is going to be a strong defense here. Do we have... Yes, we do have EMP coils, which means the EMPs could be absolutely massive for BikeRushOwnz. He'll be able to lock down all of the Corruptors, face fielding at the last moment happening from Jony, and the Reaper Tripod for BikeRush will be rushing in here. The EMP is going to be locking down this... Oh, yes, it will lock down the Eradicator Hexpod with the rear armor facing the majority of these units and the Obelisk as well, which means just constant chain EMPs. And in a couple of seconds, BikeRush has actually locked down this entire attack from JonyCalcinha. And BikeRush is a player that you do not want to lose your attacking force to in such short fashion. He just lost so many units worth of, so much Tiberium worth of units, so many units in general to that small attack wave from BikeRushOwnz, which was large in numbers, low on the tech. Although for that attack to be actually executed, he did need the EMP coil upgrade, which is going to be that tier 3 tech lab that you do need. The lightning spike going to be going down, just denying this attack, or at least stopping it for a couple of seconds. And the lightning spike, if it's controlled properly, should be able to take down that bike, but it was not able to. Although 2 Reaper tripods will certainly be able to deal with that attack if the bikes try to engage. And 2 Reaper tripods, will they actually be enough to stop this next attack wave from BikeRushOwnz? Or will BikeRushOwnz simply be able to crush through JonyCalcinha? And we do have, once again, another Eradicator with, again, all of those shock troopers. And I almost want to say that Disintegrators as support would be a solid choice, just considering how many units and Disintegrators you can spam out so quickly. The Raider Buggies are going to be more concerned with trying to get the EMPs off, and then, hey, guess what? Disintegrators aren't actually affected by those EMPs. We do have the force fields going down, which means with the mixture of attenuated force fields and then the later game force fields, there is actually going to be so many force fields for the screen units. I do believe we have somewhere on the map is going to be that Tiberium Vapor Bomb, which should be enough. Yes, here it comes. It should be enough in combination with these bikes to take down that tech center, or the technology assembler rather, from JonyCalcinha. Wait, what, Johnny? Are you doing it again? Really, Johnny? What are you actually doing? EMP buggies will lock this down once again. Oh, JonyCalcinha, do not do this, buddy. You can't do this. Our avatars are going to be able to just eat this alive. And this Eradicator Hexapod is like, hey, bro, come at me. Just kidding, because there are the EMPs, and here come the Reaper tripods. Sound the alarm, because here comes the cavalry. Although that stasis chamber will be able to lock down 3 of the avatars, another 2 of them are still around, but with so many bikes here, and oh, the Tiberium core missile finishes at the last second there, and repeat EMPs will lock down. Oh, that poor Eradicator Hexapod. Why do players insist on sending in their epic units by themselves? BikeRushOwnz able to just come around in a couple of seconds. And once again, these darn fangled dropships going to be showing up at the last moment. The Tiberium Catalyst Missile, I think he was trying to use it on the Corruptors, but the timing was a little bit late. Of course, the Tiberium Catalyst Missile does work on anything with Tiberium, including Corruptors and various screen structures and units. There's a lot of screen structures and units, and also non-liquid Tiberium power plants. You can also use those Tiberium-based weapons on, which is just fun times. And look at that, even going to be going for those laser capacitors, which I guess means that BikeRush is likely going to be transitioning into Scorpion tanks at some point. JonyCalcinha has taken some big hits from BikeRush. BikeRush took so much damage in the early game, and Johnny was so far ahead, but BikeRush, can he come from behind with a stealthed Redeemer and bring it out for the win? We have tons of Seekers, which do they have all of their upgrades? They do not have shard launchers just yet, which is unfortunate for JonyCalcinha that he wasn't able to get that upgrade before the technology assembler was taken out. And they're sitting all the way over here, which actually they could just wait until BikeRush does engage, because there is quite a bit of stuff out for Johnny that BikeRush is going to have to crush through to eliminate him. And we do have the Eradicator Hexapod. It looks like it is actually going to be Disintegrator squads into the Eradicator Hexapod. They do have the shorter range, but the higher DPS, if you can get them in range of those armored units or even structures, they do pretty well against. But so many Tiberium core bikes, which of course, with this many Tiberium core bikes, normally with Tib core bikes, well, normally with attack bikes, you don't want to engage head on. But as you can see, he's got so many that you can basically engage anything that you want head on and be absolutely fine with it. BikeRushOwnz is got a pretty solid unit composition. He's got the Redeemer, which will allow him to rage gen, which, if you did not know, the rage gen will basically deny you from controlling your units. It makes any sort of opponent units that haven't already been given an attack command, they just go crazy, they go berserk, they start attacking friendly units, and then on top of that, you cannot control your units. You can't actually click around with them for about 10 seconds or so, and it can be absolutely devastating there's been some pretty key battles in games, essentially won by that ability, where it's just like one player has a giant army, but suddenly the giant army is reduced down quite a bit, and oh, BikeRushOwnz going to be reusing his own opponent's tripods against him, and then going to be EMPing on top of that. He's getting on top of these corruptors with that Reaper tripod and crushing absolutely everything before it goes down. The phase field does go down on that Eradicator hexapod, but BikeRushOwnz is just going to be able to crush through everything. JonyCalcinha launching the counterattack. He will be able to clean up any sort of economy that was going on for BikeRushOwnz, but most of those harvesters aren't actually doing anything. The Venoms will be thrown away by BikeRushOwnz. He will be able to take down the Warp Chasm, but the Storm Columns will be able to eliminate the majority of those units, and the Seeker Tank's going to be able to eliminate every single one of these of the harvesters, which are stealth, but it doesn't even matter. And the mine's able to do quite a bit of damage. That Redeemer is like, yeah, you corruptor, you can't actually do anything. JonyCalcinha going to be losing the Eradicator hexapod, not even making good use of those disintegrators other than to take out that Reaper tripod husk. And oh, did all of those Seekers get eliminated? Yes, they all did. Just basic Nod infantry, and suddenly BikeRushOwnz going to be coming out ahead versus JonyCalcinha, and JonyCalcinha is not going to be able to make his way out of this tough spot that he has found himself in. I do not think. He's going to be desperately trying with the disintegrators, but this is simply what is going to be able to defeat him at any stage of those disintegrators. And there goes the Rage Generator, which means these disintegrators will actually be doing a lot of damage to the harvesters. They will essentially be taking down one harvester, although fortunately for JonyCalcinha, he didn't lose too many units, but the Black Hand squads will be rushing in here. Disintegrators are actually surprisingly good against infantry, even Black Hand. They do relatively well, however, they do absolutely horribly versus a Laser Capacitor Venoms, which will take them down quite readily. And oh, JonyCalcinha, a couple of key mistakes were made by him. Namely, sending in 2 Eradicators with basically no support was a big mistake. Although the second time it wasn't as big of a mistake. But the great control of BikeRush was able to win him the day. I think it's pretty comfortable calling the game at this point. He's got tons of avatars on the back end of this. He's actually going to be sending in an almost unsupported Redeemer, but it is stealth for one, and number two, the large infantry composition of JonyCalcinha's army will be eaten alive by the Venoms, and they will be able to just take down limitless of numbers of these infantry. Black Hand Squad going to be moving in to support even just a little bit more, and with those dual engineers, they're constantly in there just buzzing away with whatever repair tool that they do have, repairing that Redeemer. JonyCalcinha has been defeated. GG to both of these players. Great comeback from BikeRush. Great aggression and early and kind of mid-game from JonyCalcinha. But in the end, it wasn't enough to take the game off of BikeRush. Let's take a quick look at that resource graph. Not something you see very often is a player dominating BikeRush in those resources. And as you can see, overall 200,000 for JonyCalcinha, 40,000 more than BikeRushOwnz, almost 40,000 exactly. 22-minute game, and favorite unit, attack bike, not surprising there. Seeker, not surprising there. And JonyCalcinha, some of those engagements, I was just wondering what he was actually doing. He was trying to make something happen. I think he underestimated how much stuff BikeRush actually had. He simply did not have eyes on BikeRush for part of that game, and I think he just massively underestimated. He was like, you know what? A 4-corruptor healed, I think I said healed epic unit, that Eradicator hexapod, would have been able to crush through what JonyCalcinha thought was going to be BikeRush's army, but in the end, those EMPs and those very cheap tier 1 units were able to win the day for BikeRush. But that will do it for this match. This is Sybert signing out.